I've done plenty of class reviews in the past going over very specific power ranks and abilities, and even showcasing which is going to be in my opinion the best all-around class in the game. However, I haven't done an overall review of my main class, a class that I have been using since I started playing the game back in 2016, on the dark days before the Adventures update, all the way until today in 2024, where I feel the class is going to be at its best. Welcome to an overall class review on the Knight. Now keep in mind that these are going to be my own personal opinion based on my own personal preference. And like I stated before, this has been my main class for almost 7.5 years. So there's going to be a lot of bias in this video. So if you're one of those players that doesn't like the Knight because it's boring and all you do is just press one basic attack, I get your point, but no. If that were the case, then class gen or no class gen debate wouldn't be a thing, and also Orchestration wouldn't be as effective for a speed farming player. But I digress. This is going to be a video that is going to mainly sing a lot of praises on this class, mainly because it has been my main character for the longest time. But I will also try my best to be as unbiased as possible and just point out some of the weaknesses that the class obviously has, because it's not a flawless class. So if you haven't seen any of the other videos where I go over in my opinion, the best all-around class in the game and the most underrated class in the game, alongside my Knight build that I'm using essentially for my personal character, I'll leave everything in the description down below. Now, if you are curious when it comes to a class review and what I mean by overall, I mean how effective the class is going to be from the very beginning of the game all the way to the end game and all content. And of course, I will try to give away some numbers to give yourself a better perspective on some of my points that I just tried to talk about throughout the whole video, which is very important for this class in particular because the Knight's numbers are far greater than a lot of people give it credit. And yeah, like always, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. It does help me out more than you think. And also let me know in the comment section down below what is your favorite class and why. And doesn't necessarily have to be a good class. It's just the class that you like the most in terms of either playstyle, how it looks, and all of that. Without further ado, let's start talking about the Knight. So unlike the previous video that I done in terms of overview, I usually start talking about the beginning of the game and just try to explain all stages of the game. However, the Knight is going to be a very special case, and it's definitely one of the reasons why I like this class a whole lot, and that is going to be its consistency. The Knight will remain as effective from the beginning of the game all the way to the end game, and it doesn't dip in terms of effectiveness in any way, shape or form, where it's always going to have really good strengths and the weaknesses are going to be as apparent, and pretty much no matter how much stats that you actually grant, it's never going to be like really good in terms of its weaknesses, but it is going to be a class that is always going to be really strong, and that's mainly because of the numbers that the character actually has on its own. You will see everything once I start talking about all of the numbers. Like the Candy Barbarian, Boomeranger, Gunslinger, Tomb Raiser, Knight is one of the 5 starter classes, meaning that it is going to be a class that you do get as soon as you do pick up the game for the very first time. So it is going to be a very easy class to obtain, very easy class to craft, which is a plus for a new player. However, I feel the Knight is going to be either the best or second best for a starter character alongside the Candy Barbarian. I know Boomeranger players are going to be fuming right now, just stopped the video, went into the comment, just went like, what do you mean? Just typing really quickly because the Boomeranger does ridiculous DPS later down the line. But what you want for a new player, or essentially a character in terms of all around, you want a character that just retains consistency, a character that is just effective no matter where you're at in the game. And one of the most important things, if not the most important thing to determine a good class, is going to be the basic attack. How good is the basic attack on the class? Because the basic attack is a no resource, no cooldown, and for the most part, your fastest attack. And having a strong basic attack is really good because especially on the early game, you don't have 100% critical hit, you don't have cooldown reduction abilities, you don't have energy regeneration like crazy, you don't have hidden effects, you don't have your star shard, you don't have movement speed, you don't have anything. So you want to essentially just have an ability that essentially can carry you for the most part. And the basic attack is always really good. Boomeranger is one of those characters that relies a lot in terms of cooldown reduction. And the Knight is just a character that has a really strong basic attack. Speaking of the basic attack of the Knight is arguably one of the best, if not the best basic attack in the entirety of the game in terms of all-around basics. As crazy as that sound, because the animation looks like someone playing Wii Sport Tennis and try to cheese the AI using motion controls, just swinging left and right.
Nice.
I know it looks goofy as hell, but once you actually break it down and you see the numbers, and you're going to see why this basic attack is so dumb. So dumb, in fact, that I was actually going to make a separate video just strictly highlighting this basic attack. And you're going to see why. First of all, the damage. 4.55 times damage to be more precise, and to put that into perspective, 4.55 times damage per hit is higher than Revenant, higher than Candy Barbarian, Stage 2 or Stage 1 Bard, Vanguardian, no Classian Shadowhunter, Lunar Lancer, no Ult, Neon Ninja, Ice Age, list goes on and on and on. It's pretty much anything that isn't named Dino Tamer with the ultimate ability, and only if you hit directly with the ultimate ability. Basic Gunslinger, ultimate ability, and only if you hit directly. Fate Trickster with the passive ability. Solarian if you hit with more than 3 arrows. Blast Bow from the Boomeranger, only if you trigger more than 3 explosions at the same time. Bard, stage 3 basic attack only, which is tied to your ultimate ability. Lunar Lancer, which is tied to your ultimate ability. Neon Ninja, ultimate ability, you know, those type of things. And you quickly can see that the Knight's basic attack damage is as strong as some other characters' basic attack with their ultimate ability active. And this is not taking into account that the Knight has his own passive ability that buffs the basic attack damage, and it triggers when you do get hit, and it only has a 1-second cooldown. And it happens all the time because the Knight is a close range character. So the damage on the basic attack gets increased even further, to the point that a maxed out stage 3 basic attack is doing a not so chill like 13.5 times damage, you know, is like essentially the equivalent of getting hit with a baseball bat and the brick sound effect just plays in the background. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, damage is just absolutely ridiculous. And then usually you go into the basic attack that is just high damage. They're usually just very slow. Revenant is very slow, Fate Trickster, Boomeranger, and Solarian, all of those are just pretty slow in terms of this basic attack. But nope, the basic attack on the Knight is 2.125 base attacks per second, which makes it the potential 3rd fastest basic attack in the game. Faster than Neon Ninja, Dino Tamer, Bard, Chloromancer, Candy Barbarian, Lunar Lancer. Is faster than all of those basic attack, by the way. Basically, the only basic attack that are shooting faster or attacking faster than the Knight in every stage of the game is essentially Shadowhunter with the Clash Gem ability only, Gunslinger, Tomb Raiser, and Draco if your Knight has less than 200% attack speed, and Draco ultimate ability if your Knight has below 260% attack speed. And if you really want to go in there, well, actually, quote unquote, then you can just say basic attack that does hit multiple times. But when I start talking about base attacks per second, I mean in terms of his animation, how fast do you attack? Because those are the thing that is affected by attack speed stat. So in terms of animation speed, the Knight has the 3rd fastest basic attack in the entirety of the game, with a 4.55 times damage multiplier that gets enhanced with the passive ability. A ridiculous damage, a ridiculous speed, and then you probably might be thinking, yeah, then it probably has like bad AoE. Nope. And then you do realize that the hitbox is going to be something stupid like this. The only drawback is going to be essentially the range, essentially tied for the shortest range basic attack in the entirety of the game. But once you actually think about it, close range enemies always rush you, and long range enemies, they really don't run really far away, and for the most part they're slow and they just circle around you for the most part once you get close to the enemies. Even though it is a drawback, it's very minute drawback for the most part, considering the huge benefit that you actually have. And then the other drawback is going to be like it lowers your movement speed by 30% if you hold down the basic attack, but unless you want to pretend to be a metronome, then this shouldn't be a problem either. So you have a basic attack that is just absolutely insane, that will carry you pretty much throughout the whole entirety of the game, and that's where the quote-unquote Knight only uses 1 button comments come in. This is why. The Knight's basic attack is just absolutely ridiculous, to the point that it just doesn't feel like you don't need anything else. Later down the line, you start using the Clash Gem ability or the regular charge if you're weird, or I mean if you like that playstyle, and the basic attack will still be present right there for the most part. And this alone is what makes the knight super consistent, since the damage on the basic attack is so high that you don't need really high stat to start killing fast. And then you actually have to take into account that it's also really fast, that you don't need high attack speed to also kill really fast. It's always going to have really fast kill time, among the fastest kill time in terms of basic attack from the beginning to the end. And this is going to be something that you will be using a whole lot throughout the whole entirety of the game. Now, the reason why I mainly put this whole time and attention into the basic attack, just because some of the flaws on the knight is going to be the abilities. Unfortunately, some of the knight's abilities are going to be pretty outdated, and for the most part, they will not serve a lot of purposes. First of all, Smash is the ability is just going to be very slow. It has a long animation wind up. It does 8.5 times damage, which is pretty nice, but by the time that you actually just get the Smash to hit, you could do 2 basic attacks, do more damage, and it's going to be overall better. And not to mention that Smash kills your movement speed entirely, which is a shame because it means that you cannot use it for speed farming. And this ability only costs 20 energy, which is really low, has a good radius, again good damage, but the long wind up and by the fact that it kills your movement speed essentially, it's not a good ability. And then you go into the second ability, Charge, which is okay. You could technically use it for speed purposes, but you really need energy regeneration to use it more consistently. It can do a hefty amount of damage at 6.5 times damage and an extra 5 times damage if you do hit it completely directly with a 40 energy cost, which is average. It's not high, not low. And the movement speed, it has a stable 225 movement speed with a 14 block dash. In my own personal opinion, is not going to be better than the class gem, since getting 225 movement speed is very doable even at the mid game, but you can actually just see where a lot of players actually just use the dash. Speaking of the class gem, Spirit Squire, I do feel this is a pretty good ability, only if you can one-shot regular enemies for speed purposes, and also if you do have the overcharge hidden effect. And the other thing that is going to be really good in terms of Spirit Square is if you do leave the boss with low enough HP that you can just finish it off with 1 basic attack. It is also 8.5 times damage and 20 energy cost, not to mention it doesn't lower your movement speed upon activation. It's just essentially a better Smash. Has the same damage, the same energy cost, it doesn't lower your movement speed instead of actually just destroying your movement speed, and it has even better AoE. Remember, basic attack lowers your movement speed by 30%. This doesn't lower your movement speed at all. This is really good in terms of speed momentum. And then you actually start talking about the ultimate ability, Iron Will, which could serve you as a panic button, giving you a 50% damage reduction for 12 seconds and a full heal of 100%. Can be somewhat effective, but quickly becomes not as effective since lifesteal is very easy to come by even at the start of the game, and since it's going to be an ultimate ability, it has its 40 seconds of cooldown. That's why the abilities aren't just too great. They're either too slow, they're not enough to overtake the damage of the basic attack, and for the most part you will be using either Charge or Spirit Squire. Just use Spirit Squire in conjunction with the overcharge hidden effect for speed purposes, and just swing the basic attack if either of them are one-shotted. And this is essentially why the class is also not as great bossing. This is another weakness on the knight, and that is going to be, since everything revolves around the basic attack, it is not good enough that is just going to be an insanely good DPS. One of the things that makes a class a good boss in class is that if it has multiple damage sources, like Boomeranger with the chickens and the ultimate ability shenanigans, Solarian with the damage over time, Pirate Captain with the turret, Colormans with the plants, Shadowhunter with the damage over time with ultimate ability, Draco and Tomb Raiser with minions, you get the point essentially. So the knight only having the basic attack, it doesn't have any other damage sources, so the DPS is not necessarily high. It's not low either, but it's still good enough that it can kill bosses quite consistently. But either way, bosses is not something that you will be doing a whole lot. You will be doing for the most part mainly dungeons and leveling up, and the knight is just going to be consistent enough that is going to be really good no matter which portion of the game that you're doing when it comes to dungeon and leveling up. And that's the strengths and that's the consistency that comes with this character in particular. It does have his quick burst damage capability with this basic attack, and it does have his that high damage multiplier with basic attack, Spirit Squire, and essentially any ability from the knight is high damage. That's essentially the whole thing with the character. You're not going to be expecting a whole lot of bossing, but you're going to expect a really fast, consistent kill time for dungeon grinding. Not the fastest character out there in terms of overall speed, but it is a character that is going to be very easy to maintain as effective, and just to be as effective with that character is just consistent. That's the best way to put it. And yeah, that's the knight. Everything that I mentioned covers essentially every portion of the game. The class is just consistent from the beginning to the end. Class that just retains effectiveness no matter where and where you use it. This might be one of the best all-around classes in the entirety of the game for that particular reason, because you want a class to be very consistent from the beginning to the end. You don't want a character to be a very strong for a very specific portion of the game. There are certain classes who are really strong at the end game, but they are not great at the beginning portions of the game. There are certain classes who are just pretty good in the beginning of the game, but quickly falls off later down in the game. It is also a class that you don't need a very specific build or stats to be effective. All of the things like the overdrive hidden effect, energy regeneration, attack speed, while very important, yes, but those will enhance the character rather than just being something completely mandatory. Anyways, that's one of the reasons why I liked the class so much, and I know the kind of result that I'm going to get when I'm using the Knight. Thanks for watching. If you like content like this, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Take care and keep on hunting. See ya.